this study would be at the same level. And I just, again, this may be my not understanding the whole picture, but from what I have understood thus far is there is a way to put the 6th grade in the middle school, and there may even be a very strong academic argument for why we would want to do that. So, putting money into a study of how to expand Crocker Farm to accommodate 6th grade, to me seems premature. That's my concern. I mean, of all of the citizen projects, I think this is the one that is most compelling, and because clearly the support to move forward in the schools is unanimous. But that's my concern.
I just want to echo, Mike goes in now, Alex's, I may know a little more than Alex about this, but I think we need to, I'm looking towards our school committee members for some sort of guidance on, is this a study that, number one, in terms of what the residents have requested, would need to be done should we get an EMSBA program process, at the sort of point, as Lynn sort of said, with those sort of ideas being looked at, is that going to need to be done, number one? And if it is going to need to be done, is it something that our school committee thinks is preferable to start now because of what may or may not, the cost of, say, the feasibility study that we know that MSBA will chip in to help pay for, because that's going to hit, as the presenters last week said, a maximum. And so if it's going to hit that maximum no matter what, why not start this early? I think I'm looking for some guidance from our experts over here on what the timing you think is best for this potential, since I think I'm hearing something's going to need to be done for feasibility at Crocker, and is this resident request on point with what would need done, and should we be starting it early?
I'll start and then let Eric can add anything more. So to answer your first question, yes, it should be done, and it will need to be done at some point. And I think that's the $1 million question, right? Is what is the exact timing that we need? I think there's it's complete uncertainty, and I actually really like your suggestion of putting the plug in so that if we do get in December and we can get started on this, that we actually do. But it is a question mark for me, really, still in terms of the timing, particularly when I see that we're not putting in spending for the full feasibility study until 2021, right? So in my mind, the two should be happening either in quick succession or at the same time. So if we're saying that we're not going to be able to start realistically the full feasibility, so that 400,000 until 2021, in my mind, that would be about the same time that we would want to be spending on any other feasibility studies that could not be included. If we did think, though, that we could start early in 2021 with that big one, then I would say definitely let's put it in as a placeholder and know that that is something that we may not need in the end once we get the answers from MSBA about whether it could be included.
Right. I think that all that makes total sense, and to me, and I think that the point that was made earlier also that you're going to hit the maximum of what's reimbursable is, I think, highly likely. And so in that sense, it's likely that if it's not this, it's going to be something else we're spending money on. That's going to be out of the town. I think on the point about moving the 6th grade to the middle school, and then the necessity of doing any expansion at Crocker, I think the challenge for us, and this is like it's a fascinating challenge, and it's a real one, is that we have a number of balls in the air that we're trying to assess whether we think it's a good idea and whether we think we should do it. And I'd say two things. One, in terms of literally whether we want to do it, and whether ultimately the superintendent's gonna recommend it and it's the right thing to do, we genuinely don't know yet. And then also as a matter of public confidence, because we recognize these conversations are dynamic. So they involve parents, they involve staff, they involve feedback from students. And so the public conversation we have around what we're choosing to do is, as you know, a meaningful input into whether ultimately we're gonna think a particular set of recommendations or something we wanna move forward with. I'm saying all that because anyone looking at where we are right now could logically say that in a couple of years' time, we're gonna have the 6th grade in the middle school. For any variety of reasons, we're gonna think we can get well reimbursed to do one larger K through 5, and that there's not a need for any expansion at Crocker. But what I would say is that the conversation we were having through all the listening sessions in which the superintendent and the school committee was saying, we don't actually know that. And so there are strong concepts on the table, but that's exactly what they are, they're concepts. Argues for the likelihood that, particularly this is something we've talked about before with the MSBA does require districts to flesh out different alternatives and kick the tires on them. And so the likelihood that we would want to look at a K-6 expansion for Crocker is, as Allison said, the superintendent himself said has a very high confidence that he has that we would need, in fact, to look at that scenario. And I'll say it again, although I'm not conceptually, speaking personally, I'm not conceptually opposed to the idea of looking at balancing 480 and 480. When our school committee has talked about this and when the superintendent's talked about it, he actually hasn't been talking about, none of us have been talking about, the notion of balancing out 2 smaller schools as the part of the proposal was being brought forward. We haven't ruled it out, but we've never actually been talking about that. We've been literally just talking about it as if we keep 2 K-6s, how do we suss out the viability of expanding on Crocker?
Can I just? Yeah. I still need more clarification. If we find out on December 12th, I think is the magical date, that we are in the MSBA process, then we're using months. It takes a certain amount of months to then engage for the feasibility. The reason I'm asking this is because, yes, we've now said, okay, the 400,000, which is an approximate amount, needs to be in FY21. Is there any reason to put some in FY20? Because even losing 3 months of getting going in my mind, is critical at this point.
It's a good question. I think some of it relates to our change in government. So in the past, primarily, there were 2 opportunities to appropriate money or make these sort of decisions, spring and fall town meeting. Now, I'm looking at Paul, but you can make those decisions twice a month. So if we find out on December 12th we're in, the lead time to make a decision on approving a borrowing, for example, to meet with the MSBA needs, it's not the same as it was before. But I think, again, given that change, I probably want to go back and get talk with the town manager and the superintendent and see if you're right. If we should put something in FY20 or if we feel FY21 is good.
I want to echo Lynn here. We don't have to wait till, like in previous, when we got in, you waited till Springtown meeting in May and you appropriated it for the next year. If we're in December, the council could act in January to appropriate feasibility, so it starts immediately. And if that's the case and we want to plan for being in the system, we probably should have that feasibility money allocated in FY20 with planned borrowing, not even 21.
Yeah, well, to look at the timeline, there's significant, it's quite possible to be FY20. The last time around in this process, there's quite a bit of lead time in terms of doing the procurements to get the OPM and get the designer on board. But it is possible that FY '20, like April April, May, or June, might have bills to pay, so.
So,
I think that we need to remember that what we're principally working on right now is what our recommendations are to go into the budget for FY '20 for capital. And once we make that recommendation, of course, then it's up to the town manager to decide whether he wants to accept the recommendation. But, and furthermore, even if money is put into something, if it turns out otherwise to spend it, it doesn't get spent. So there's a couple of additional trigger points along the way. The question of where we put the bulk of the feasibility money, which year is, you know, it's really where it goes on the spreadsheet, but in reality, you're absolutely right. When we hear that we have been invited into the process, whatever year that is, that's the point when the council is going to immediately jump to say, okay, we need to put a chunk of money into it and borrow it. I think that our question right now is, really, should we take a sum of money, or recommend that a sum of money from this year's capital, assuming we're not borrowing, assuming that we just don't know the answer to this, be made available for initial feasibility work, which would then have both of those trigger points that go beyond, because the manager would have to decide whether he wants to accept that recommendation and reduce something else, probably roads by the whatever amount. Of course, we don't know what that amount is, which is another problem that I'm having in dealing with this. Furthermore, wouldn't make a decision to spend it unless things have been worked out with the superintendent that it is a wise, thoughtful thing to do.
but maybe, I'm sorry, maybe Joe and I were having a side conversation. What we're both saying is that in FY '20, I would put a figure in of $440,000 to cover what we think we need as the match for MSBA and what we think we need to do the Crocker Farm. I'd even make sure that MSBA knows we've done that.
But if put 440,000 in, is it all under borrowing, or is it 400 under borrowing, 40 under?
I leave that to the town manager to decide.
That was to be along my lines of, are you taking 40,000 out of roads, or are you cutting something, where are you getting the 40,000 from? Because theoretically, that's part of what we've done in the past is, like, so I don't know if anyone, I don't know if everyone's in agreement to just leave it to the town manager, or.
There's 20,000 right now, again, that
Right.
isn't spoken for, so.
I guess I also, and maybe you